Welcome to the Transform My Dance Studio podcast, the only podcast dedicated to helping you grow your dance studio while reclaiming your life. It's Clint Salter here, the CEO and founder of the Dance Studio Owners Association. And for the next 8 weeks, we're bringing you a very special series of podcast episodes with dance studio owners Jane Grech and Melanie Gard, who are also part of our Inner Circle program. Over these next 8 episodes, Jane and Mel will be sharing their own challenges, successes, experiences, and advice as dance studio owners. Welcome to this very special podcast event at the Barre with Jane and Mel. I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of At the Barre, a podcast for studio owners by studio owners. My name is Jane Grech, and I'm joined again by my very good friend, Melanie Gard. Hello to you, Mel.
Hi, Jane. How are you going today?
Very well. Thank you for asking. And you?
I'm great. Really
Good.
Happy to be talking to you again.
Yes, I'm excited that we were allowed to do a second episode.
No, that was big, wasn't it?
It was. We passed our test, and we hope if you're listening that you have listened to episode 1 and that you did enjoy the conversation. If you're joining us for the first time, Melanie and I are both dance studio owners in Australia. We're in different states. Melanie's in Victoria and I'm in South Australia. And the idea of this podcast is that we chat about things that relate to dance studio owners in a universal way. The fact is that a lot of the challenges are the same the world over. And that's really reassuring in some ways, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's what keeps me sane, to be honest, Jane, is being able to chat to people like yourself and know that I'm not alone, because it can be lonely owning a studio.
Yes, it can be lonely, and I've felt lonely. I mean, you and I both started 12 years ago in taking over our schools, and we didn't have Facebook then, and I remember there were some times I had a new baby, and we'll get to that shortly, but there were some times that I felt like I was the only one facing the challenges that I was at the time, and it could be quite overwhelming. I found now that, like I've just said, I certainly am not the only one, and really it is the same the world over.
And it is so reassuring to separate yourself from, that everyone experiences those same issues. So it's not necessarily about you, and because we are such passionate people, us dance teachers, we can take things really personally. But I find when I talk to other people and they have the same issues with customers or students they're teaching or whatever it might be, it's really reassuring to know that you're not alone and that they are universal problems that we're all facing.
I agree. And it is easier to take it. It is easy to take things personally, but when you find out that this is the kind of things are happening, then you realise it isn't actually about you. And to be honest, not much in life is about us. We're funny beings, us humans, and we do tend to try and make it about us when we can. But the subject of our conversation this morning is very much about us, in that we're talking about motherhood and being a dance studio owner. So you've got 3 kids, I've got 3 kids. They both all 6 of them seem kind of okay. Like, I reckon we've done all right.
Yeah, they're good little people.
They're good little people, yeah. And they've all been brought up in the studios. So let's just flesh that out about how you've managed to combine motherhood with being a dance studio owner, because it is quite an interesting life at times, and it is quite demanding of your family as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and look, it's been a real process. I think, like anything, isn't it? When we look back, we think, wow, is that what I used to do or used to think? But we evolve as parents as much as we do as business owners. And I think I feel blessed that I can raise my children in an environment where I can have them at work with me if I need to. They're around a community environment that I have designed and created. So I'm very happy for them to be there and a part of it. So I think that's something really unique about a dance studio. And all my kids have, some of them dance more than others, and that's totally fine. My eldest is a really passionate dancer. The other two sort of come in and out of it a little bit, but they have all benefited from being inside the studio and having those older students around them and looking up to them. I feel really lucky that I've been able to do that.
Yeah, I feel lucky too, and I think that mindset's important, particularly when you do feel like maybe you're not doing enough as a mother, and we'll talk about mother guilt, which was the biggest surprise of my life 12 years ago when I had Alana. I agree with what you're saying. There is a certain amount of flexibility that we can have from this life that we've chosen, and in fact, Master Liam is here with me today. He could come in at any time, which will make this podcast all the more interesting, because he's not feeling very well. And so I'm working from home this morning and he's around. So, yeah, there are advantages, absolutely. What happened with me, I guess, is that I have found that sometimes I'm really feel like I'm doing it quite well, and other times I feel like I'm kind of failing a little bit at it. What I've found, though, in more recent times is that I'm actually a little bit more okay with the failure side of things, and that things don't have to be as perfect as perhaps I thought they were going to be. I'm not the perfect mother, whatever that is. I am the perfect mother to my children because I am their mother. But I'm perhaps not what I thought I was going to be when I first started this journey. I might have thought that I was going to be better at encouraging them to do their homework and making healthy meals. And, I had this ideal of what it would be, and the reality has been quite different.
It's far from it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's really common. Like when I talk to all of my friends that have children, whether they're dance studio owners or nurses or, stay-at-home mums, we all have that experience. I think that's a universal experience of motherhood that we all start out wanting, because you have this perfect little baby that's little human, and all you want to do is give them all of the good things in the world. You don't want anything bad. And so we start out with these ideals of what we think being the perfect mother is, when in actual fact, being the perfect mother to me is actually being a little bit not perfect.
Yes.
Showing your kids that life is not necessarily smooth sailing, and that some days are harder than others. But for me, it's about showing my kids that I'm resilient, that I can pick myself up again, when we have those days where the wheels fall off, which they do, This morning wasn't so great leaving our house for school this morning. It wasn't a great morning here. But, I dropped them off and I apologised to them because I was short with them. And I think that's okay too, as long as we're honest and the kids know that it's part of a bigger picture. We're all working towards something as a family.
Yes. I think that's kind of special too, just on that point that you made there. We're all working towards something as a family. I think owning a dance studio, it does infiltrate your family, because there are things like performances where, they're all bundled in the car and sitting in the auditorium for 8 hours of rehearsals or whatever. It does infiltrate the family, but they can also see that there are highs and lows, like you're saying, and that role modelling is pretty amazing. I know as my children are getting older, they're more perceptive about what's happening in the business, and we have to be a little bit more careful about that. But I also know that they can see that what everybody else can see from the outside might look shiny and bright and wonderful, but they can kind of see the backstage a little bit, and they can see that it's hard work, and that, like you say, at times it's a bit low, but you keep going. And what a gift that is to give to our own children.
Absolutely. And I think as females too, I'm really conscious of role modelling that to my girls and to my son as well.
Of course.
Because I think we're showing them that, it's okay to be a busy working mum. And that, both you and I have wonderful husbands that are very supportive and play strong roles within the household as well. I know that's not the case for everyone. But role modelling that, it's okay for dad to do the school pickup and cook dinner and put on a load of washing, that these are not just the domain of the mum. All of those things too. I feel really passionate about role modelling that for my girls particularly.
Yeah, me too. And like you say, and our sons, because perhaps these little guys will become dads one day, and they're going to need to know how to cook a good spaghetti bolognese or something, aren't they?
Yeah, totally.
The other thing that you said that I thought would just link back to was about acknowledging that it is a bit of a process, like and that's what I found both exciting and a little bit tricky, in that it's always changing. So when we take it right back to when the children were babies, that felt quite hard, because you would just kind of get in a rhythm, particularly in the first year of a baby's life. You just get into a rhythm and you think, okay, I can do this, and I can get my work balanced around this, because she sleeps at 2, and you just settle in and enjoy it for a week, and they go and change on you. And then obviously, and I thought actually when the babies were little that was quite hard, but I'm almost finding it harder now. That they're older and they're all at school, and I remember thinking, all I have to do is get them all to school and I'll get some order back. But actually I find it a little bit trickier now. And that's the thing, is each year is different because they're 1 year older.
Yeah, absolutely. And their needs change, their needs from when they were a baby. It was so physically demanding, wasn't it? The physicality of having to do everything for those little people. Whereas now, they can dress themselves and do all of those things. So that's great, but their needs are different. And I find
much more emotional needs.
Both of us are at secondary school now, and so their needs are different emotionally. And I think, that also comes back to looking at, well, what am I doing within my business to make sure that I can create it in a way that I can be there for my kids? And I guess that leads into another point about designing and structuring your business so that you can do those things and be there for your kids in a different way. When my kids were little, I was very happy to go and teach in the evenings because I'd been with them all day, and I was very happy to do the handball and say, yep, see ya, Rob.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Whereas now they're at school, I've reduced the amount that I teach, because I'm really conscious that if I'm not there some of those evenings after school, then I'm not there to chat to them, find out about what might be going on for them at school socially, help them with homework, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it does really change the role that you're playing.
Yeah, and I think we do need to acknowledge that, and particularly if there are some new mothers listening to this conversation, and it might feel a long way away, when your firstborn is 12 and at the moment they're 12 days old in your arms, but you blink and it happens. Everybody says it and you don't believe it until it does happen. Every year you're going to have to kind of look ahead and think, what's my family need from me this year? How much do I need to be around for them? And design, as you say, design your life, design the timetable, and you know what? Do what suits you, because you can design timetables around your families and your students, but the sad thing is they come and they go, and the people that are left with you are your family, and you must, I'm quite passionate about this, but I feel when I'm 80 and I look around, 80 years old, and I look around, I want my children and my husband with me, not
totally
the children from level 3 ballet in 2018.
Yes. Oh, yes. And, don't we hear that so often from, you and I are friends with many studio owners, and and that sort of sense of being torn between, you know, should I attend the competition or my kids, you know, got their school assembly or whatever it might be. Go to your kid.
Yeah.
Go spend time with your child if that's what you're choosing between, you know, because at the end of the day, like you say, that level 3 ballet kid's not going to remember that you were there or not. They'll remember if their mum was there at the competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because we feel so many pressures coming from so many different directions. But yeah, I often think that too, you know, that when I'm a little old lady.
Yeah.
I'm in my bed, what do I want? And that's what I want too.
And I think, you know, with that, until you've had children, you can be at all of those things. You can. And you're 100% devoted to the kids in your school, and that's great, in your studio. And then I think what happens is we have our own children, our own offspring, and we keep trying to be everything to everyone. And then we get to the 3-year mark and we're burnt out and we're possibly a little bit resentful and we're tired and we're just feeling like we're not doing anything well. Then it's because we're trying to maintain the lifestyle of 3 years ago, that before we had children. I know. I mean, I used to work from 7:30 in the morning till 7:30 at the night before I had Alana.
Yes.
Obviously no way I can do that now without compromising a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So we do have to, it can just creep up on you, I think. That's why I'm making a point of it. It can creep up, and not to feel, guilt is a horrible emotion. And, you know, don't feel guilty when you're not at the studio, and don't feel guilty when you're not at home. I think we need to be where we are 100% and know that that's where we're meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's it sort of leads into another point about being very planned and organised around what can I see in front of me. So, you know, like at the moment I'm thinking about next year. Now, as we're recording this, it's the start of May. I'm already thinking, okay, my second child is going to high school next year. How do I want that to look for me next year in terms of my teaching load, the role that I'll be playing within my business, so that I know I can be there for him as he transitions into that work. And that's something that I've always done. You know, even if I think back to when the kids were really little, I would know that, okay, I've got a big day tomorrow at the studio or teaching or whatever I was doing. I would literally lay out every piece of clothing for the children. I would have their socks like undone and ready in a row. But I learnt really quickly that just made everything easier because I planned ahead. I'd thought ahead that that's going to be hard in the morning. Now it's a bigger picture for me. I'm thinking, gee, that's going to be hard next year when Austin's at school. What can I do now to put in place, you know, whether it's someone taking on extra admin time or needing another teacher or whatever it might be, planning ahead is so important. Yeah,
I agree. And I mean, I think there is a bit of control freakiness about dance studio owners. I mean, you do have to be a bit of a control freak to own a business because there's so many moving parts. And then you add in a family, which is like sometimes trying to put an octopus into a string bag. And planning for me, I agree, has helped me feel like I'm in control. So I'm a meal planner. You know, I sit down at the start of the week. I hate doing it. It's like I have to be disciplined about it. I hate doing it. It's really boring, but I plan out what meals we're having for the week and make sure we've got the groceries for them, because if I do that, it's less painful on Thursday night when we go, what are we having for dinner? I don't know, and I'm at work. And, you know, and then you default to perhaps takeaway or whatever, which I've got no judgment. I want everybody to know that's fine. But if you default there regularly, and that's when you get into the feelings of guilt because you don't feel like you're coping, you don't feel like you're doing enough for your family. So the planning helps you kind of not go there so much because you think, all right, most of the
little
time.
things, isn't it? Like well, for me, you know, I laid out the socks. It was the little things, you know, planning those meals. The other thing I did when, you know, in the first couple of years was I started to employ someone to do a couple of hours of admin.
Yes.
Now that's built over time, and I've got a much bigger team now and quite a few people that play administration roles within the business. And I just bring that up because I often see people saying, oh, my goodness, I need an admin manager, and they want to go from zero to a full-time position overnight. And, I mean, for me, it was a build situation, you know. I had someone in that came in and did 3 or 4 hours a week in the beginning.
Yes.
And over time, I've been able to layer that and build that, and as the business has changed and grown, that has been of huge help for me.
Yes, I did the same. I just a couple of hours and built on it, and it did just free me up. I mean, there's nothing more difficult than trying to return calls to potential families and customers in between a baby's sleep time, and it's very stressful when you're sitting there and you're trying to get a baby to go to sleep because you've got all of these phone calls. It's kind of like they know. And they're like, I'm not going to go to sleep.
Do they sense it?
And you stand there rocking them and patting that wee bum, and nothing's happening. And that in itself is, I remember that stress. And even worse, babies, you know, you can at least put in their cot, but toddlers are more stressful again. So I think that's great advice. Outsourcing a bit of the admin so that you can share a bit of that pressure. It doesn't always come down to you. Mel, the time goes very quickly when you and I chat, or at least it does for me. And we're going to bring it to a close in a minute. But do you have like, what are your top 3 tips for how you've navigated this motherhood and dance studio owner journey?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my first one, which we've chatted a bit about, is being organised. And I mean, I would say I'm a naturally organised person, so that's something that came, you know, fairly easily for me. But that's not to say that I'm organised all the time. Sometimes the wheels fall off. So be organised, but cut yourself some slack when it doesn't happen too. You know, don't be too hard on yourself. The other thing I would say too is just do those little things in your business that can add up to the bigger things later on. So looking ahead, planning, bringing people in that can start to pick up some of those smaller roles within your team that free you up to be able to go home early or go to that school running carnival or whatever it might be. And the other thing I would say is build a team around you that is separate to your studios. So for me, something that's been really important is to build networks and relationships with people like yourself, Jane, but also with other people that are in business, running dance studios that experience the same challenges of motherhood and work and, you know, managing all of those things in their lives. I've found that to be of huge support, knowing that I'm not alone. Is really good for my mental health.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're great. Yeah, fabulous. I've got 3 as well. 3. Yeah. These are my top tips for surviving the challenge that is motherhood. My first one is to lower your standards, which you kind of touched on. You know, sometimes near enough is good enough. Sometimes, you know, they might wear the same pair of shorts 2 days in a row and gasp, you never thought you'd let them do that previously. Well, it's not going to kill them, so go for it. And also, you know, sometimes your house might look a little bit messy, and that's okay as well. Just go with it sometimes. Lower your standards. My other one is, which we've touched on, is kind of acknowledge that it's always changing. Look at your current situation and managing that, and then review it quite often, perhaps every 6 months, more so in that first couple of years when they force the change, and let the child be the guide. You know, don't try and fight it. If they've given up their 2 p.m. naps, then you might need to change your schedule. don't try and fight it. I did try and fight that for a while. And my last one is just, again, which I've already mentioned, is be where you are fully. Be where you are. If you're at the studio, don't worry about what's going on at home. You've put someone at home, whether that's your husband or your mum or your friend or a nanny, you've put them there in charge for a reason. So trust them and let them do the job and know that they will call you if something really, really needs your attention. But otherwise, focus on what's in front of you. And the same as when you're at home, if you've put people in place at the studio, trust them. They will call if things are really, really urgent and need you. But otherwise, focus on, the little people that are sitting in front of you now. Do the puzzle, read the book, play trains, whatever it is. But try and just really be intentional about where you are and what you're doing, and not always thinking about where you're not. And that's been quite a struggle for me. Yeah, but
really good advice. Yeah.
And I think I'm probably still working on that, but I'm definitely a lot further ahead than I used to be. Anyway, all right, my friend. Well, lovely to chat with you again. It's always nice just to kind of reminisce too a little bit about where we've been with those children. And
absolutely.
I'm a little nervous about what's to come.
Let's hold on for the ride together. We're both entering those teenage years, aren't we?
We sure are. And I don't know about you, but I've noticed some changes already that are difficult. But yep, I'm sure we'll all be okay. So thanks again, Mel.
Thanks, Jane.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of our exclusive series At the Bar, powered by the Transform My Dance Studio podcast. For more training, resources, and support specifically for dance studio owners who are wanting to grow their business while reclaiming their life, we'd love you to join us in the Dance Studio Owners Association. For all the information, go to dsoa.com. Take care, and we'll see you next week.